welcome tonight to the FLL project insights from a coach and an FLL alumni. We have I'm sorry, I should have asked how to say your name. Samantha is a 4-year FLL participant and was a member of Team 5831 Control Z from Bayview Glen until 2020. Her team earned a Gracious Professionals Award at the 2019 First Championships in Detroit and earned a Champions Award at the 2020 Ontario Innovation Celebration. Eric has been involved in Thurs for 12 years with experience in FLL Challenge as a coach, core values, innovation project, and robot design judge, and as a head referee and an FRC as a team attributes judge. Wow, you guys have a lot of experience. Welcome.
Thanks, Sherry Lynn. Appreciate the introduction. I just want to welcome everyone to the session. It's great to see everyone and see everyone with great interest in the research project and FLL and Cargo Connect. It's a pretty interesting and exciting theme this year. So the objective here is to give you a few pointers that perhaps you and your teams can use in your research project this season. As Sherry Lynn had mentioned, I've been doing this for a number of years and have a bit of a formula and approach. Not going to suggest that it's the only approach, but it is an approach which historically has worked for the team. I coach a team called Control Z, which is an FLL team from Bayview Glen School in Toronto, actually located in North York. And we have Santhiya, as Sherry Lynn had indicated, who's a 4-year participant in FLL and a great member of Control Z for the last 2 years, who can share some insights from a participant perspective. I wonder if you're not asking a question, and I was about to welcome anyone to ask a question at any time as we present, if you could mute out just so that we can proceed uninterrupted. But please feel free, if you do have a question, to put up your hand, and Sherry Lynn will allow you to pose the question in sequence, in the order that the hands are raised. The one thing I do want to say before we get into the presentation is the team that I've coached has been around for a long time. And one of the things that Mr. Dave Ellis had always reminds me is that, make sure that people who are attending the session understand that, these are what we're going to talk about are possibilities. It's very difficult sometimes for teams to accomplish all that we describe in this presentation, because you have to remember that sometimes the team that I coach proceeds into the postseason. So the season can actually be 8 months long, and the team works over that entire period, refining and perfecting, if you will, their project. So they accomplish a lot, but over an extended period of time. Now, a lot of newer teams may just proceed for 4 months or 3 months up until the November-December regional qualifying tournaments. And a lot of this, the volume of work that I'm going to describe may not be possible to accomplish. But the idea is to give you, as an audience, a sense for what is possible. And you can pick and choose what elements of this presentation you want to incorporate into your team's research presentation. So Sherry Lynn, if you could move to page 2 or slide 2. I'm just going to flip. So Sherry Lynn, if we could go to page 2, that'd be great. On page 2, you see a schematic, which is a current description or depiction of the 4 elements of FLL, the innovation project, core values, robot design, and robot performance. All of these elements are required in FLL tournaments, and each represents conceptually 25% of the composite score, if you will, of the team. So research, the innovation project is an important element. It's one of my favorite elements. I have to confess that when I started in FLL, I was not really aware that the research component. I thought it was all about robots, and robot is the hook that gets students and kids into FLL. But from a learning perspective, the research project or the innovation project is what I believe people learn the most about, which they actually apply in other parts of their lives, whether it be other courses at school or their post-secondary studies or even eventually their career. It's about, learning how to research, how to brainstorm, how to present, how to interview professionals and experts, how to think on your feet when judges pose questions to you. It's about decision making. It's about all the things that we need in our day-to-day lives to be successful. And I think what FLL does is it gives a wonderful opportunity for students to experience that in an environment, that is non-threatening. The judges are friendly. It's all meant to be very constructive. The teams perform at various levels of success, and it doesn't really matter how well they do, as long as they try their best and they improve the team members and the team improves over the course of the season. That's the objective. And as long as that is achieved, then the season is a success in my mind. So from that perspective, I think the research project is really a critical area, and arguably teams spend more time on the research project sometimes than in the robot, just because it is so the scope of it is almost endless potentially, depending on where the team decides to draw the line on the scope and depth of their research. So anyway, that's kind of my high level comments on the importance, and hopefully you find something similar over the course of your season. I'm going to pause and just see if anyone has any questions at this point. Talk for a couple of minutes. Sherry Lynn, are there any questions coming in from the audience?
Just looking here. Can everybody see the screen? I guess that's one of my questions.
I can over here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't have any questions in here yet. They were just asking about sharing the screen. So I think you're good.
All right. So on to page 3, if you could advance the slide. I have a few bullets here that talk about the, in general, not really season specific, but in general, what the innovation project involves. It's about identifying a challenge-related problem or issue that the team has researched and analyzed. It's about generating innovative ideas to solve a problem and selecting an idea and building on it, either building on an existing one or inventing a completely new one, potentially developing a prototype for that solution that they've created, and sharing that innovative solution, gathering feedback from experts to improve the innovative solution, and considering what the next steps are for future improvements, even after the FLL season is completed. And finally, the last bullet is about sharing your presentation with an audience. Probably the judges would be one audience. It could be other audiences as well. Sometimes teams are asked to present to various industry groups or associations, or even other students in the school, if it's a school team, for instance. But certainly there will be at the end of the regionals, at the end of the first part of the season, there'll be a 5-minute presentation to the judges. So on to the next page, which is page 4, slide 4. This, as you know, as many of you know, this year's theme is called Cargo Connect. For me, it's a particularly exciting theme. Everyone depends on transportation of goods for their daily needs. As more demands are placed on transportation systems, we will continue to face challenges unless we find new ways or improve existing ways to transport products from place to place. And it's such, in my mind, it's such an important topic today. I don't think you can open the newspaper or read a newspaper, if anyone still reads physical newspapers, but online newspapers even, where you can avoid seeing or not see an article having to do with cargo or supply chain challenges or shortages of products for consumers, prices of freight and cargo going through the roof, a lot of it related to pandemic. So it's very relevant in today's environment that we're in, that the organizers at FLL have chosen Cargo Connect as the theme this year. The one thing I want to point out is you may, as coaches, you may want to refer to the engineering notebook. I'm just going to put it up here. I don't know if you can see this. This has just arrived in the mail today for me, which is great. It's also available in the First Lego League resources. You'll have to log into your dashboard account, choose the My Teams tab, and click on Access Thinkscape. And you can get the engineering notebook, which contains all sorts of tips, to help the team brainstorm regarding the research project. For example, so there's these areas or sections of the engineering notebook that talk about, they're called project sparks, for example, and they talk about efficiency in one case. So they give you some consider points as a team to think about for brainstorming, such as what is the cost of transporting cargo? What is the time it takes to transport cargo? What energy is being used to transport cargo? So these are the things that the organizers or the people that have chosen the theme have wanted or want the students and the participants in FLL to think about when they're deciding what problem it is that they want to tackle. So if we can go to the fifth slide, page 5, specifically with regard to Cargo Connect, again, we're being challenged to identify a problem related to making the transportation journey of products better. We're supposed to research that problem, design a solution. It could be technology, equipment, or a method or process, I guess, how I interpret that. You need to share that solution with others, probably experts, and then refine it, as I talked about earlier. And as I mentioned earlier, presenting it at an event in a 5-minute presentation, followed by question and answer with the judges. I'll just pause for a moment to see if there are any questions from the audience.
There's nothing in the chat, but if anybody wants to raise their hand if they have one.
Everyone good? Okay, I'll continue on to page 6, slide 6. I have a slide here, and I'm probably going to devote more time on this subject than other presenters might. It's about the problem statement. And for me, my interpretation is the problem statement is the team's hook. It's their opportunity to captivate the judges and, and convince them that their problem is a problem worthy of study. So the problem statement is something that the team should develop, and it's typically about 3 sentences long. It's important that the problem statement be concise and tight, and to the audience, it should be clear what the problem is that the team is trying to solve and why the team chose that problem. So I have that cartoon of a man with his hair on fire, and I'm not going to pretend I came up with that. I actually stole that idea from another presenter on the subject, but basically it depicts a situation where you need to address a problem, the problem being your hair on fire. It's absolutely critical that you deal with it now, immediately, and effectively. Otherwise, you're going to cause some physical harm to yourself potentially. So the idea is to have the team or have the students convince the judges that the problem that they've selected is something that absolutely positively needs to be solved. And it's an important problem that's worthy of everybody's time. including the team's time to solve. I think, yeah, I think I want to turn the mic over to Santhiya, who's going to give a couple of examples of a problem statement from the last couple of years. So why don't we move to the next slide, which is page 7. And to give some context to this problem statement that Santhiya is going to deliver, in that season, teams were to identify a problem with a building or a public space in their community. So this was the City Shaper. And to arrive at the problem statement that Santhiya is going to deliver, the Control Z team members brainstormed for over 100 hours. They had discussions with several experts on public spaces and performed a detailed literature review on the subject of parking, because that's what they ended up studying in the end, and the needs of seniors and those with disabilities. So let me ask Santhiya to deliver this problem statement.
Okay. So the problem we are addressing is accessibility. People without accessible parking permits are parking in designated spots, blocking access to those who require them. Without available accessible parking, many people with disabilities and seniors will be trapped at home, leading to isolation, immobility, mental health issues, and shortened lifespan. The disabled are valuable members of society and deserve to have the mobility to allow them to participate in their community.
So, if you just think about that statement for a bit, and it took, I know as a group, as the students on the team, as well as the mentors, spent a lot of time sort of hammering out this sort of these sentences to try to convey to the judges that seniors are an important part of our society. That there is an issue in our society with regard to parking and misuse of parking permits, and that the implication is that seniors are potentially unable to find parking, and which has some very detrimental effects to their well-being in the form of they become more isolated, which can lead to mental health issues, and it can even go as far as shortening their lives. So it's in our mind, it was kind of that sort of your hair is on fire type of scenario where this absolutely positively needs to be dealt with, because we're talking about lives, we're talking about lifespan, and we're talking about an important component, that being seniors, to our in our society. So I just want to pause for a moment, because there may be some questions around the problem statement that Santhiya just delivered. Does anyone have any questions on that?
I don't see any in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised yet.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for some hands to pop up, one thing I did want to say, and I think Santhiya has some follow-on comments, is that this problem statement is critical, and it's very important that all the members of the team know the problem statement, believe in the problem statement, and are passionate about it. They have to be able to deliver it to judges or anyone that asks them, what is the problem that your team is exploring? Why did they explore that problem? Why is it so important? Santhiya, you had some other follow-on comments to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when you're giving your problem statement, you want to speak with a lot of passion, because you really want to show the judges or to any audience really that's listening the severity of the problem that you're solving, and that it's a real issue that needs to be addressed. And through the problem statement, when you're speaking, you really want to show your passion and the amount of time and effort and dedication that you put into creating your problem statement, and the hours that you put into researching your topic, because creating the problem statement isn't actually like a very easy or quick thing to do, because it seems like it would be really simple because it's just a few sentences, but you really need to think about like the words that you're going to use to make sure that they're very powerful and showcase the problem that you're solving. So it's really helpful when you're presenting your problem statement to use a lot of intonation in your voice and eye contact, and as well as like hand gestures to really show that you really care about solving this issue and really show that it's one that's worth solving.
No, that was well put. Thanks, Santhiya. If we move to the next slide, we have another problem statement for another season, the one prior called Into Orbit. And to give you context before Santhiya delivers it, I'll just say this is the season where teams were to identify a human, physical, or social problem faced during long duration space exploration within our sun's solar system and propose a solution to that problem. So Santhiya, go ahead with this one.
So according to NASA, a dental abscess, which can lead to sepsis and eventual death, is a medical condition most likely to result in a spacecraft evacuation. Astronauts need to brush their teeth to prevent this. Currently, there are two ways of getting rid of toothpaste and oral fluids after brushing. One is to swallow it, which can result in harmful fluoride toxicity in the long run, and another is to spit it into a towel, which requires costly towel supplies and creates unnecessary trash. We need a way to make brushing teeth safer and more pleasant to encourage proper oral hygiene during long duration space travel.
Thank you, Santhiya. So the one thing I do want to comment about this is the Into Orbit year was a little bit different in that I think in every other year, to my recollection, every other season, it had to do with a problem in our community. And I think this year in the Cargo Connect season, it also has to do with our community, however you define our community. Community could be our neighborhood, could be our city, could be our country, or it could be the world. But at least it's something tangible and something understandable to the students because it could affect them directly. Certainly Into Orbit was different because it had to do with space travel. And to my knowledge, none of the team members in FLL had ever been to space. So the relevance of it was a little bit more difficult, and the hair on fire aspect of it was more, I guess, a little bit more nebulous or ambiguous. And, that's why I've got the next slide, which is page 9, to help bridge that sort of gap. And it's a little bit hard to see, but we'll walk you through this very, very quickly. It was an attempt to make sure that the Control Z FLL students understood what the hair on fire, the importance was of, as Santhiya described, oral hygiene in space. And, just to give you context, when you think about space, we're told to also reflect on long duration space travel, which is, think of a mission to Mars. So that could be a 1.5-year voyage. So who cares about oral hygiene in that kind of an environment? Well, I think this flow chart kind of sums it up, and it's very hard to see, but Santhiya, why don't you start by just going through the right side, and I'll talk about the left side real quick.
Right. So if we look at the top of the flow chart, it's asking whether astronauts brush their teeth in space. And if they don't brush their teeth in space, which many of them didn't, because one of the methods of getting rid of toothpaste in outer space was to swallow it. And a lot of astronauts didn't want to do that. So if they don't brush their teeth, it would eventually lead to tooth decay and periodontitis, which you can see is illustrated in the flow chart. And this already is causing major health issues. However, this tooth decay and periodontitis will eventually lead to a major infection that will spread throughout the astronauts' bodies and cause sepsis. And because of this, the ISS, which is the International Space Station, will have to evacuate their space mission, which again, the chart shows is very costly. And because these astronauts have gone long without brushing their teeth, they could potentially die as well.
Right. And on the left side, I mean, we talk about in the case where an astronaut does brush their teeth, which they should, the issue which the team identified was, having watched videos and actually interviewed an astronaut, was the astronauts have to actually swallow. There's nowhere to spit in space because there's no gravity. So, you brush your teeth and then you just swallow the fluoride and the toothpaste, which is problematic because, on a longer journey, not necessarily just an ISS orbit of Earth, which may be 6 months or whatever. Maybe you're okay to swallow your toothpaste for that duration, but if you're going for 1 or 2 years in space and you continue to swallow your toothpaste after having brushed, I think there's some long-term issues with fluoride and its effect on organs, the brain, etc. So the team decided to focus on, well, how do we encourage space travelers to continue brushing their teeth on long duration space voyages and maintain, well-being and without any side effects of having to swallow toothpaste containing fluoride.
Mr. Borromeo, I think there's 3 students that have their hands up, so they might have a question.
Okay. Carrie Lynn, do you want to moderate the questions for us?
Roberto?
Yeah. So my question is, how did you guys, what was the solution to your project?
That's later in this presentation, so we don't want to spoil the surprise, but we're definitely going to talk about that. Okay,
because I was just wondering, since you were talking about the problem, wait.
No, great question. Great question. And, and that's one of the, you bring up a good point. It's sometimes when you're doing these presentations, particularly the judges, you may not want to save your solution to the very, very end. You may want to give them a taste as to what that solution is. So very good point, but we will get to that. I promise.
Okay. Can we get Robert?
Yes, I'm Coach, but just wanted to point out too, the characteristic of 2 of those problem statements. Both of them have a very concise scope. That means the problem they're trying to solve isn't hugely large that you couldn't come up with a solution within the confines of a FLL. I mean, it's so easy to come up with a problem statement that is so huge, the solution to it is almost impossible. But both of these problems were had defined scope, and so are able to demonstrate a solution very concisely.
No,
just wanted to say that.
I couldn't have said that better. No, thank you very much for that comment. Great comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Leo Song.
So it's more of a comment than a question. So actually, we have developed a new type of toothpaste for babies, because they usually swallow their toothpaste. Maybe this could be a solution for the outer space.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the issues that the team examined was fluoride. So potentially the baby's toothpaste has a lesser or no fluoride content in it. But there is research, American Dental Association, Canadian Dental Association, saying that fluoride is very effective in remineralizing teeth, to the extent that there is decay has begun, and maintaining the enamel on teeth. So there is, I think, positive value in including fluoride in toothpaste, and the recommendation is that they being space travelers continue to use toothpaste containing fluoride, but not to swallow it. That was the key. So Sherry Lynn, any other questions in the queue? None. I presume there's none. There being no questions, I'll continue. We're on page 10 or slide 10. I just said what research can include. So research for the team can include a review of a broad range of information, quality information. They can be journal articles, they can be magazine articles, newspaper articles. It can include interviews of professional subject matter experts in the field that the team wants to study. That I just wanted to talk about. Basically, there's no limit as to what the research can be, and it can be depending on what subject or topic or problem the team is deciding to pursue will determine the type of experts and type of research that gets conducted. You know, you can talk to scientists I have, engineers, industry associations. You know, one year, I think it was last year or year before last, parking was an area that the team wanted to focus on, parking of vehicles. So there's a Canadian Parking Association. There's basically there's almost an association having to do with almost every sort of interest that's out there. There's you know, I'm sure in for this year, transportation, there's probably a Canadian Trucking Association. I haven't looked into it yet, but there's probably freight forwarding associations, that type of thing. And it's a great source of contacts and potential sort of research for a team. One of the things that judges look at is as I'm alluding to, is the quality, the depth of the research, but also the quantity. So they do want the team to not necessarily rely on a single piece of research or a single source of research. If the team can, you know, get corroborating research from various sources, I think that that's beneficial for the judging sessions, and it leads to just more complete research overall. So just if you change, or if you can advance to page 11. Yes. So this is a wall of text, and I don't mean to go through this, but this gives you a sense for the type or the quantity of experts, subject matter experts, and that's a form of research, as I suggested, that the Control Z team had used in each of the last 2 seasons, the City Shaper season and the Into Orbit season. When they are interviewing these experts, I would suggest that that the coaches remind the students to take notes, prepare in advance of the meeting, brainstorm as to what questions you're going to ask. It's a very potentially intimidating situation to be talking to adults who are experts in on a subject and not knowing them. They're strangers. So I think there has to be some, you know, practice in advance, some dry runs, some, you know, sample questions that the team sort of develops, and maybe even assign questions to each student so that they have a role, if you will, in the interview with the experts. You know, and you'll see over the course of the season, as they interview 1 and 2 and the 3rd, and by the 5th expert, they're getting the hang of it. Certainly at the beginning, it's a little rough, typically. I mean, we have students, you know, from grade 5 to grade, you know, it could be up to grade 10, but certainly at the younger ages, it's a very intimidating, potentially intimidating experience. But with, you know, proper guidance, you know, from a coach and facilitating the interview, I think it can be a very productive experience, you know, and great for the students' development. I did want to make one comment on experts, and a lot of coaches ask this question, which is, how do you find the experts? How do you know, one of the tenets of FLL is that the kids do all the work. And I think it's, you know, do we expect students who are in grade 5 to cold call, you know, the CEO of a shipping company or of a trucking company? Probably not. It's probably from a safety perspective, et cetera. So I do think it's it's acceptable, you know, practice for a coach to make that first contact with the subject matter expert and say, hey, you know, if they're on the phone, you know, I coach an FLL team, and you know, the theme is Cargo Connect, and you know, I have a bunch of students who'd love to meet with you and just ask you some questions about whatever problem is that they've decided to pursue. And then leave it to the kids to take it from that point on. So, I guess in this pandemic environment, most of these interviews may take place either by conference call or by Zoom potentially. Have the students sort of run those meetings as much as they can. Introduce themselves, introduce their problem that they're solving or wanting to solve, or if they don't have a problem, just introduce the team and, ask them, ask the subject matter expert what exactly it is that you want to get from it. Can you help us choose a problem? What problems does your business have in the field of, cargo and transportation? What if you could have a solution, what would it be? You can always ask those questions of people that are in the industry, and you'll find that adults who are in leadership positions in companies and businesses and that sort of thing are more than happy to engage with young minds and young enthusiastic students. So give it a try, see how it works. And I found that's worked out quite well for us in the past, taking such approach. So I'll just pause there. Is there any questions? Are there any questions from the audience?
I have one. Who do you, for the problem statement that you talked about just a little while ago, when do you actually create that statement? Before you actually do the project or closer to the end when you're preparing your presentation?
Great question. I think it's done both. You start with it, but it evolves as you learn more. So you may, as a team, come up with, I'm trying to think of an example. I want to study parking of vehicles, and then you interview various subject matter experts, and then you learn things as you talk to them. This subject matter expert is a professor at McMaster University, and she specializes in the challenges that seniors have in society. Maybe we should focus on seniors, so it kind of snowballs as you interview, as you do research. The problem actually gets refined and it's made more and more concise, I think, is what we've found historically. And then I would go further to say that, the problem statement gets refined almost up to the point of the competition, because at that point you want to make it super tight. You want to make it a very tight statement, a very impactful statement. So you'll wordsmith it, you will refine it, you'll make sure that each word is measured. So to answer your question, it evolves. You start with a broader problem statement, and as you gain knowledge, it narrows. And then just before the competition, you tighten it up as much as you possibly can. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all the questions we have right now.
Okay, so on to page 12. I know we're running late. We may go, we won't exceed 7 o'clock, but we'll try to keep on going on this. So page 12 or slide 12 is what is an innovative solution? So there's brainstorming, there's idea generation. You have to clearly explain, your solution. The solution has to be feasible. It can be something that already exists, but that you're repurposing. It could be something that is totally new as well. So like an invention that is totally new. I think judges give different credit to sort of the degree of innovation in that solution. To the extent that the solution never existed and is effective, I think the team would receive great sort of credit from or recognition from the judges of that, because obviously that's a much more challenging task. The credit is also given by the judges to teams that consider, how am I going to manufacture this? Where will I manufacture it? What is going to be the cost to manufacture? How much am I going to charge to sell this thing? Am I going to make enough money on this? Is it possible for this to be a sustainable business? I think all of these things come into play here as in the judges assessing the, you know, the practicality, if you will, of the innovative solution. I just pause there for a second. Does anyone have any questions on that? No questions?
No, I don't see any in the chat yet.
I will keep on going. So on page slide 13, I've included what I call validation of the key assumptions around the solution. So, you know, the team comes up with a problem, the team develops a solution. Is that solution going to work? And that's great if you can demonstrate to the judges the efficacy or the utility, of your solution to your community and society. So one of the things that the team did is they conducted a survey, and the survey, sort of validated that there was a market need for their solution. So basically, the survey says, would you, in a very simplistic level, and you can make it much more complicated than that, but hey, survey responded, would you perceive a need for this particular product that we're thinking of inventing? How much would you be willing to pay for that? That type of thing. So these are the questions you can ask. And if you get a response that says, we really need this, or, 90% of people say, I would definitely use this thing. That's really validating the sort of the purpose of your invention. And judges would like to see that type of thing, rather than, oh, I've made this, or we have made this invention. We have no idea if people are actually interested in it. So if you can validate it somehow, market studies or a survey or something that goes a long way. So we're just on page 4, on slide 14. I wonder if we could quickly, Santhiya, paste into the chat box the URL for the solution for City Shaper,
Sure.
Which is Spot Saver. So this is about 1 minute and 20 seconds long, and if you, for the audience, if you can just click on the URL and watch the very short video to see what the solution is to the parking problem that they had identified, that would be great.
I just sent out the link. So it would be great if everyone could let me know that they could access it.
So Santa, it's 6:47. So maybe after about 1.5 minutes, maybe you could then paste the Into Orbit AstroBrush solution URL. Maybe just wait 1 minute or so.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I could probably play them too. There's no guarantee it'll work perfectly for everybody, but
yeah, I'm just concerned about bandwidth. So
yeah, exactly.
This was kind of my workaround. So
no
hopefully,
problem.
maybe Sherry Lynn, could you try clicking just to make sure it's working on?
Yeah, it is working.
As you as a representative audience member, that it works.
Yep, it does. I see lots of people saying that they've got it and it works.
Okay, great.
Someone said it doesn't work for them.
Interesting. Emily,
I think you had some issues with your computer in that earlier too, with seeing the screen. So it just might be the speed of your computer in that. So maybe when we're not on Zoom, you'll be able to look at it better. If you open the link, you'll be able to have it after. And we'll make sure we send it with the
sure, you can blast up the presentation as well. Feel free.
Exactly. So we probably have about 5 minutes left, by the way.
Yes, so we'll go through another link, which is 1 minute and 20 seconds as well after this one. So
Okay.
Yeah, I just sent out the link for the Astro Brush.
Okay, so everyone, Santhiya has just pasted in the chat a description of the solution for the into orbit season.
Emily, you can see the second one, but you can't see the first one? If you just copy and save the link, you'll be able to do it after. And we can make sure you get it again.
Maybe a few people could just indicate if they're able to see the second link. Okay.
Yeah, a couple people said they did, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, she got the first one to work too now. Awesome.
Mr. Borromeo, would it be helpful to talk about Google Forms as a method of creating the survey?
Yeah, while we're waiting, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, so when we created our survey for our team, we used Google Forms, where basically you could just create a list of questions and send them out to a bunch of people using like a specific link, and it'll update you on like the responses that you get. So for example, we created a flow chart, which we basically used to kind of organize the type of questions that we were going to create. So before we even created our survey, we just wrote down a list of questions that we wanted to ask that really got to like the root of our problem, to show that it was one that affected many people. And based on like certain questions that people answered with, it would take them to like another question, so that not everyone was getting the same question, and we could get a lot of different perspectives. And at the end of every survey, we would always include like some sort of link to a video of our solution where people can view our product and give us feedback on that as well, so that we could use some of their feedback for like future things that we should consider, or like improvements and things like that. And whenever we got our results from surveys, we would also organize them into pie charts, so that it would be easier for people that were looking at our boards, for example, to read, and for judges to read as well. So it was just like a really great way to organize our information, and for us to show like what conclusions that we drew based on the survey.
All right. I'm gonna, given that we've only got about 3 minutes left, I'll go real quick. Not much to say on slide 16, Sherry Lynn. Why don't we fast forward to 16? I mean, people may wonder, because it's robotics, should our solutions be robotics or technically, complicated? I think the answer is it can be, but it doesn't have to be. So this goes back to 2017. This is a slide. You can see one of the students, Alex, on the bottom left, using an oscilloscope to try to debug the hardware issues that they were having with the team invention, which was the Pinder Pet Finder. And if you go to the next slide, page 17, you can see a very low-tech solution, which involved a big ball bearing that slides down an inclined plane, hitting copper pipe of various lengths to represent various notes. And this was an invention that was made to try to teach music students rhythm, the concept of rhythm. So you can see that it's very low tech. It's the ball rolls along a wooden molding. Basically, it's a baseboard molding with a groove in it, and you have a bunch of hangers and copper pipe hanging by string from these hangers. So it doesn't get any lower tech than that. But what I will say is both the low tech and the high tech solutions were both highly successful in FLL with the judges. So don't be intimidated. Teams, please don't be intimidated and feel the need to be using, electronics and Arduinos and stuff like that. That's not a requirement at all. I think I probably have 1 minute. I see that Annika is here, so that's probably my hook to get. She's going to pull me off the stage here. The last page that I do want to, second last page to talk about, it just shows some of the financial information that the team worked with. And so, and as part of the sort of making the feasibility of the invention, or the feasibility of the business that is being used to launch the invention in the market, the students can take a look at what it costs to manufacture on, in scale, in whatever number, hundreds of thousands of units that they intend to produce, and you can actually show a financial projection. And that's what this attempts to summarize. There's a lot more numbers beneath this, but this is sort of the end product, bar charts and tables and that sort of thing to illustrate to the judges that the team has actually went beyond just coming up with a product, but also thinking whether the product will fly from a business perspective. Is it enough? Is there enough there for this to be a feasible solution, commercially viable solution? And I guess finally, just to wrap it up, on the last, second last page, I guess it is page 19, there's a 5-minute presentation. And because I normally would say the presentation can take a variety of forms, a skit or a news interview or something like that, or even just a formal PowerPoint presentation, they like to see creativity. But we do know that at the qualifying tournaments, the judging will be done remotely, i.e. via Zoom, not unlike this. So it's a little bit more restrictive as to how the students present their research. You can try to be as creative as you want. I'm sure if you incorporate music and that sort of thing, that would be certainly, applauded by the judges, because think of it, the judges are seeing 15 or 16 presentations a day and would love to see something a little bit different. So to the extent that you can make it interesting and unique, that's great. The final page is just a screenshot. This is page 20 of the rubric. And I would encourage the coaches and facilitators to please circulate the rubric, discuss the rubric with the students, bring it up, throughout the season, have the students focus on how to get their work to be a 4 ranking. So you get a 1. 1 is a beginning, 2 is developing, 3 is accomplished, 4 is exceeds. So you're trying to steer the students to score on the right side of the rubric chart. Have them take a look at that, study it, and keep it in mind so that they, keep them focused and give them an objective, which is to try to score on the right-hand side in each of the categories, if at all possible.